Hello, everyone. I'm going to do a presentation on social engineering. Now, this presentation is going to think of it as tools in a toolbox that you can use. It's not going to be so much guiding you step by step on how to do it, but more things that you can apply to it that are really, really useful. So to start out, what is social engineering? And there are two definitions. One is about centralized planning in an attempt to make social change. And the second definition is the use of deception to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential or personal information. We're going more with the second definition. I would like to start by talking about a psychological effect called the mere exposure effect. The mere exposure effect is the tendency to develop more positive feelings towards objects and individuals the more we are exposed to them. And this is often regardless of the context that we see them. So this applies to both negative and to positive things. It doesn't require any action, nor does it require the development of any beliefs. You'll see it used in memes, in media, and I'm going to talk about how you might use this when social engineering. This is a graph of an experiment that goes through the mere exposure effect. In this, what they were doing is they were researching the attitudes of participants towards Chinese-like characters. The more they were exposed to these Chinese-like characters, the more that they ended up liking these. And this effect has been replicated in a variety of some other experiments. Some questions to consider. If the mere exposure of things causes you to increase your like of these different things, how might that have influenced you or others? And content bubbles. So the idea that there are search algorithms that try and customize things towards your liking, how might that also affect you? And as an example of this, I'm going to show you a couple memes. They're somewhat political, but just consider, do you see more of this in your social media feed? Or do you see more of things like this in your social media feed? So I like these images. I thought they were very illustrative of that effect. So how might you use this when you're actively trying to infiltrate an organization? Visit the same coffee shop as the target. The idea that they merely have seen you and experienced you, like in their presence, will increase the likelihood of them liking you and responding positively towards you. So I'd like to read a short quote. I smiled as we passed each other, but my mind was in overdrive trying to understand this spontaneous positive response. Then it hit me. This young man sat in a glass booth in my campus parking garage, monitoring daily traffic flow. Each time I parked my car, I passed by his booth, but we have never had an occasion to actually meet or converse. I knew absolutely nothing about this young man, yet seeing him had elevated my mood. I liked him, but why? So if you're ever planning on social engineering and actively infiltrating some sort of organization, consider visiting the same coffee shop or other locations that they may visit. So this next section I want to talk about is a theory of how people behave. And it's called the theory of planned behavior. It's used quite extensively in marketing, and it consists of three main points: attitude, norms, and control. Attitudes are positive or negative feelings a person has about performing an action. Norms are a person's belief of what they think others believe about an action. And control, the ability to do something and if they think they can do it. So the theory of planned behavior is kind of like a framework for how you can assess or view different social engineering attacks. So what is the theory? In short, the idea is that your attitude, positive or negative, plus the norms, positive or negative, plus your control over performing an action equals your intentions, which can then lead directly to behavior. The actual theory is a little bit more complex and has several variations. If you see in the graphic, there are subparts to each of those things. For example, your belief on whether you can control a certain behavior versus your actual behavioral control. They're two different components, but they play a part. And if you could quantify these things, shifting one or the other can lead to changes in human behavior. So an example of this, let's start with YouTube. The U in YouTube would appeal to attitude. There's a lot of things here that deal with norms. You have views, number of comments, number of likes, number of people who have subscribed. And then the purple circle points out the control element, where after you watch the video, you get the choice to subscribe. All you got to do is click the subscribe button. Very similarly with likes and things like that. Amazon is also pretty similar with appealing to norms. Look at all those people. So how might you actively use this theory when trying to enter an organization? An understanding of the expected organizational behavior allows you to follow the norms. So if you follow the norms, it'll be easier to get people to trust you and to do what you want them to do. Control and perceived control matter. You can't social engineer someone who doesn't have access. It just won't work. Some people, though, have more access than they think. And when you social engineer, help them see it. And lastly, avoid getting people to do things that they will see as suspicious. This means setting the stage so that it comes across as natural. This is going to be a really short section, and the section after this is going to be the longest and kind of most comprehensive. I got this out of the book Social Engineering, The Art of Human Exploitation, but it talked about how people have different dominant ways of perceiving the world. So you got visual, hearing, tactile, reading. And what a door-to-door salesman would do trying to get sales is that he would start out and he would use key phrases like, doesn't this look good? Or do you hear me? Or he would reach out and touch their hand and watch how they responded. The phrasing that people use when they speak sometimes reflects this communication style. One of the other things he would do is, as he was talking to them, he would have a pen in his hand and he would swish it and see if their eyes followed. He would click it to see if they responded to the click. There's not really any science out there per se that verify this, but it was a tactic that some social engineers use to try and create rapport with the person they're talking to. Okay, so this comes from a paper that broke down recorded social engineering attacks. One of the things that happens with criminals is they can go to prisons and talk to them about what caused them to cause crimes. And what they found is for social engineers, oftentimes a successful social engineer gets away with it. They don't have that same opportunity to talk with them. So instead, they looked into the literature and broke this down to see what social engineers were doing. And one of the main findings was that there were several principles of persuasion that were used in the social engineering attacks. So those principles of persuasion are authority, conformity, reciprocity, commitment, liking, and scarcity. Authority is people's tendency to comply with the request of authoritative figures. If people are unable to make a thorough decision, the responsibility to do so is transferred to the group or someone they believe is in charge. Crisis and stress can activate this transition. And now I need to see if I can share my audio. Okay, so here is a video that demonstrates the use of authority. In this case, the reporter has a position of authority. They're reporting on some aspect and they're supposed to trust them. But it very well could have been somebody who wasn't a reporter.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a Chihuahua Papillon.
And what's its name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And where'd you go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
Hempfield Area Senior High School.
Oh, when did you graduate?
In 2009.
Oh, great.
It's like my cat's name and then just like a random number.
Okay.
But,
Have you had this cat for a while?
yeah, she's my childhood pet.
Aw. And what's her name?
Her name is Jolie.
Jolie. So like a password of yours would be Jolie and then a number.
Yeah.
Like number 1?
Like my birthday.
Oh, when is your birthday?
June 12th.
Oh, nice. And what year were you born?
95.
Oh, great. So Jolie, 6, 12, 95.
Yes.
Got it.
So you mean to give my password right now? No, I cannot do that.
But we all want to know what it is so we can tell you if it's strong or not.
Oh my goodness. Let me think. Okay, one is Tel Aviv. Yeah. 468, and then Israel. It's only 3, but it's for me it's strong enough.
Ireland, 1, 2, 3, 4. Gemma, 1, 2, 3. Spelled Gemma.
Well, most of them are Italian.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So
like what's a good Italian password?
my grandma's name,
What's your grandma's name?
Maria.
Maria. So Maria is your password?
Oh yeah, now you know my password. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, sometimes social engineering things such as passwords can be that easy. In a business context, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult. So let me read this example of a social engineering attack. Hi, says the voice at the other end of the line. This is Tom at Parkhurst Travel. Your tickets to San Francisco are ready. Would you like us to deliver them or would you like to pick them up? San Francisco, says Peter. I'm not going to San Francisco. Is this Peter Abels? Yes, but I don't have any trips coming up. Well, the caller says with a friendly laugh. Are you sure you don't want to go to San Francisco? If you think you can talk my boss into it, says Peter, playing along with the friendly conversation. Sounds like a mix-up, the caller said. On our system, we book travel arrangements under the employee number. Maybe somebody used the wrong number. What's your employee number? Peter then gives out his employee number. That was an example of a social engineering attack. The next principle of persuasion is conformity. So conformity is the act of imitating the behavior of other people. Members of the in-group have a stronger feeling of group safety compared with members of the out-group. And I have another video here that's a prank, but demonstrates this principle. The next principle of persuasion is reciprocity. So it's the act of giving something in return. So it's like giving a gift, and then the target feels indebted to the requester for making a gesture. Even the smallest gift putting the requester in an advantageous position. I don't have a funny video for this one, I'm sorry. The next one is commitment. So it's the likelihood of sticking to a cause or idea after making a promise. In general, when a promise is made, people will honor it which increases the likelihood of commitment. So very straightforward. After getting somebody to say they'll do something, you say, do you promise that you'll do this for me? And generally, when they say they promise, they will follow through with it. And lastly is liking. People tend to like others who are similar in terms of interests, attitudes, and beliefs. So if you present yourself in a manner that is similar to the other person, they're more likely to like you. And the last principle is scarcity. Product, service, or information may have some limited availability. This is an actual example of a social spear phishing attack where it said Facebook will close down all accounts today. If you would like to keep your account, please verify now by clicking in this link. So that idea of scarcity also is a way of social engineering people to do something. In this case, click a link. You see some of these principles elsewhere. So scarcity, for example, once again on Amazon, you'll see this only 2 left in stock, order soon. It may be true that there's only 2 left in stock, but at the same time, it's also one of those methods of persuasion. So the study broke down the use of these social engineering attacks by persuasion principle. And overwhelmingly, 63% of the persuasion or the social engineering attacks used the authority principle. This can include pretending you're a boss, pretending you're a travel agency, dressing up as an electrician or plumber to get inside a building, things like that. And then liking, commitment, and reciprocity were the next 3. And surprisingly, conformity and scarcity, which are often used in advertising, were hardly ever used in social engineering attacks. If you want to see the effectiveness of each principle kind of broken down when they went through various scientific literature on the effectiveness of it, the p-values, which is a statistical measure on whether there's an actual effect there, they found all of them reached statistical significance. And you can read further into the study if you're interested in reading about that. The one thing that's surprising, though, is authority did not have any study on it, even though it's so widely used in social engineering. I found these 2 graphs pretty interesting in the anatomy of a social engineering attack. They're not the best for side-by-side comparison, but the first one shows that attack steps dramatically decrease when between 2 and 4 persuasion principles are used. The second graphic shows how many steps were needed to obtain compliance. Authority is used the greatest throughout the entire process. Initially, liking and reciprocity is highly successful, but it's used far less as additional steps are needed. And I kind of take that as flattery and gift giving might arouse suspicion if overused. There's some other interesting things. This chart is read from right to left, and it kind of goes through the common steps used of the persuasion principles before they got compliance. And they created a tree structure of the different ways that that was done. You can look more into that later if you're interested. That's all that I have. Thank you.